So today we're talking about the Supernova, how relevant they still are. Are they Luffy's rifles? Are they not? What's the point with them? What's going on? Strength and all those kinds of things when we compare them to Luffy and these Straw Hats. And the first point that is really important to understanding the Supernova is that you have to subscribe to the channel, right? There's a lot that we talk about here, stuff that, sometimes no one's talking about. Interesting videos about speculation, about theories, fun stuff. So if you want to get in on all that, be up to date with it as well, then subscribe. If the button's still red, I don't know what you're doing. You must be doing it wrong. Anyway, if you're worried about spoilers as well, the description as always got you for this video and all my other videos. So if you're up to date or you don't care about spoilers, let's go for it. And so the first point is that the Supernova is irrelevant, right? The Supernova at the end of the day are characters who will essentially be the end of story warlords and Yonko. Not that I'm saying that the concepts will still exist. I mean, the warlords don't exist already. But I'm saying that the way the Yonko and the warlords are feared in the world are the way the Supernova will be feared. Yes, these concepts may not exist, but they evolve over time, right? Like just the way that there probably wasn't the concept of Yonko and warlords a long time ago in the One Piece world, and the world has evolved and gained them, and now will probably lose them as well. The Supernova will become their own version of that exists in the world, and characters will fear them all the same, right? And of course, when you compare warlords and Yonko, there is a spectrum of power, right? From characters, as strong as Kaido, Big Mom, Shanks, all the way to warlords who we met at the, if we're taking the beginning, we're not taking the new warlords, but characters in the warlords who are much weaker, on the other hand. And of course, one important thing about the warlords and the Yonko is that all of them kind of started their journey, and it's just that some of them couldn't make it as far as others. Essentially, the warlords, the Yonko are the characters who made it as far as they could in their journey, but that doesn't mean the warlords are any worse, because, you have characters like Mihawk who are still pretty up there, and if you ask some people, he's just as strong as any other Yonko. So the warlords and the Yonko, wide range in strength. I think that's what the Supernova will shape up to be in the future. Of course, it just depends who will actually make it to that status where they're still comparable with Luffy in the end, and who will drop to the point to where they're just essentially has-beens at some point in the story. Now, it seems that, focusing on at least Law and Kid, they seem to be, still moving with Luffy as rivals, although some people do not think so. I still think that, they're rivals. People think that Blackbeard is Luffy's only rival left. I think that's crazy. And the reason why I think it's crazy is, hear me out, right? Luffy was never Blackbeard's rival. That's never been. After Wano, maybe. After Wano, maybe he will begin. But Blackbeard's always been ahead of Luffy, like from the beginning of the story. Yes, Blackbeard Blackbeard got a bounty after Luffy, but that was intentional, right? That was part of his plan. Blackbeard has always been so far ahead of Luffy in terms of planning, in terms of everything stuff he's accomplished as a pirate, how strong he's been, that Luffy is not Blackbeard's rival in any regards, right? Blackbeard is like Luffy's antithesis, we could build him up to be, because of all the similarities yet differences between the two. But Blackbeard, as far as a rival for Luffy, he's never been that. But the Supernova from the get-go, right? Even in Onigashima, we look at stuff on the rooftop where these guys are playing to say, like, guys, who can tank this attack? Whoever flinches first is out. And all three of them, they got each other into just standing there and taking attacks head on, right? If that is not rivalry, I don't know what is, right? Now, of course, when you look at stuff like, the fact that Luffy's versus Kaido on his own versus the fact that it's Big Mom versus Kid and Law, there's stuff you could say. Of course, Luffy has a fleet. None of the other guys do. Luffy's being called the fifth Yonko. None of the others are. There's stuff. There's obviously stuff you could, say that makes Luffy not their rival anymore. But I don't think that that's what the rivalry was in the first place, right? It wasn't about who can look like the picture perfect Yonko or picture perfect, person who's advanced more than anyone else. Because at the end of the day, as far as we know, Roger didn't have a fleet either, right? Having a fleet doesn't make you a better pirate than anyone, right? Because by that logic, having a fleet, Luffy having a fleet makes him better than Roger. in a sense, right? just thinking about the fleet aspect like that, right? If we're talking about strength, there's so much nuance that, you know, at the end of the day, Law and Kid beating Big Mom and what that does for power scaling, Oda's just going to play around with it, right? And it's all up to where your agenda lies as to who's stronger at the end of the day, because there's so much mixed up. But let me not act like, you know, I'm saying that Kid and Law may be stronger than Luffy. I personally still also believe Luffy is stronger than Kid and Law. I think that is very clear in the story. My point is that, you know, there's something about the relationship, the progression, and the journeys about Luffy, Kid, and Law, which Luffy doesn't have with any other character in the story, right? And that's what keeps their rivalry alive. There will never be a point in the story where strength-wise, even though Luffy may be stronger, strength-wise, you know, Kid and Law would just be out of their depth when it comes to fighting alongside Luffy, fighting against Luffy. There'll never be a moment where it's just like Kid and Law are utterly useless and can't do a single thing, and Luffy just has to take care of them and sort out everything at the end of the day, right? Luffy tried to do that on the rooftop, and, you know, a couple of chapters later, he got slammed, and that was it. So there'll never be a point like that. And considering that that is almost as established, okay, let me not compare it, but it's very firmly established, right? I'd say almost like the Monster Trio. I mean, of course, the Monster Trio is way more established, but like, that is something that's really one of the hardcore facts in the One Piece world, I feel like. That, you know, the relationship between Luffy, Law, and Kid, there's a rivalry that Oda would never kill. Even if it means power creeps for certain characters, Oda would never be like, okay, now Luffy's just completely surpassed these guys. These guys have no hope of catching him in strength, and Luffy's just several tiers above them. And in a one-on-one or something else, there's nothing these guys can do. Like, Oda would never put them in that situation. But given the fact that they are weaker, and there are other supernovas who are even weaker than that, relative to the Straw Hat Pirates, I think that there's a lot of people who would like to say other Straw Hats are as strong as a supernova, which for me is another crazy thing, right? Oda's gone through all this effort to show that the supernova are beasts, are monsters, are hell of characters in themselves, right? Apart from the characters in the Monster Trio, it is very hard to say that any other Straw Hat would be able to beat the supernova. Well, maybe Jinbei, but the rest of them is very hard to say, right? Oda has gone through so many hoops to just make sure this is not possible. And I'll give you one example, right? When we found out that Drake was part of Kaido's crew, we found out he was part of the Tobiropo, and then in Onigashima, we had Straw Hats versing the Tobiropo. But then what did Oda do? He made Drake defect, making him not a Tobiropo, and his battle was against another supernova, right? So he took a supernova out of this position, made him fight another supernova just so he could separate them from everything going on with the Straw Hats versus the Tobiropo, right? So Oda's gone through hoops to make sure that the rest of the supernova and the rest of the Straw Hat crew are never on the same playing field. It's never like these guys are, you know, they're kind of on the same level. Except for the Monster Trio and Jinbei, you know, for obvious reasons, Jinbei being a warlord, and I just likened these guys to warlords at the beginning of the video, and the fact that, you know, already the Monster Trio is the Monster Trio, I don't need to explain that. The rest of the Straw Hats you can't even begin to compare them. Now, from here, the next thing I do want to do is a tier list video, so get ready for that. It will be a tier list video comparing the Supernova and the Straw Hat crew, putting them all on one tier list where I think they all fall in. And I'll try to have as little categories, because at the end of the day, we could just like put, you know, maximum number of categories and just put everyone in their own tier. I'll put as little tiers, make it interesting, and of course it will be based, you know, when I do it. So when chapters come out in the future, you know, I don't know what's happening then. But yeah, that's the next thing. Anyway, guys, this is it for this video. Tell me what you think. Well, how do you feel about the supernova? Any supernova you have any expectations for? They don't have to be grand expectations in the story, just little expectations. Maybe it's a power thing. Maybe it's a find out their backstory thing. Maybe it's a see them do this kind of thing. Let me know all about that. We can chat about it. And I'll see you guys in the next video, which will be the tier list.